so long since we've done a live stream. Making sure that everything works is important to me. So if you can see me and things are going live. Oh wait, what? See, that's so strange. I can see the video, but maybe I can't. Every time I get on the road and travel, I never know if this is gonna work. Let's see here. I see and hear you. Okay, people are giving us the thumbs up. That's good. I'm glad to know. Thank you for that. I appreciate your guys' help. Okay, so big news in the crypto world. I was sitting here in the city doing some work, getting this month's private newsletter ready, and let's just jump over here with the screen share. You know, who's really good at this? I want to just first off give a shout out to DB Tier 10K. This guy is so fast at this. Every time there's some news, I almost get it here first every time from this bro. So if you haven't yet, follow DB 10K or Tier 10K. They do pretty good. But I want to start with the CIA mouthpiece here, the New York Times. Here we go. We'll just read through this together and make some commentary along the way. The nation's top securities regulators filed 13 charges against Binance and its founder. Oh, it's amazing. They haven't lost any customers' money, yet the securities regulators are aiming at CZ and Binance now, considering they just let FTX off the hook with nothing. And that's great. Good work, guys. So the Securities Exchange Commission has accused Binance, the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, of mishandling customers' funds, as well as lying to regulators and investors about its operations in a sweeping case filed on federal court on Monday. So this is always abstract. You know, you're dealing with the securities. Well, look, if you take a look at what happened with the pandemic, I think it became blatantly obvious to everyone that regulators are not there to help you and me. They're not there to protect the average person. What they are there to do, in effect, is regulate so that the big industry players don't get screwed over by the little players somehow. And right now, the big players that might be getting screwed over here would actually be the general banking system. And we've heard them talk about this a few times in the past, that what they're worried about is the effect of crypto on the traditional market, saying, oh, we can't do this, this is unsafe, people are going to find trust somewhere else, it's a danger to the banking system, oh, it's a threat to democracy because we can't control the money and where it goes then during this inflation process. So just to be clear, right out front, regulators are there for the Wall Street bankers. They're not there to help you, and which is very obvious because Gensler and the rest of those thugs who work at the SEC are really only there to try to help out the big players. So let's just roll over through. It says, the regulator said that Binance have been mixing billions of dollars in customer funds and secretly sending them to a separate company called Merit Peak Limited. Well, let's see. First off, ladies and gentlemen, if you've got funds on an exchange, you should take those off. After my last mistake with FTX, surprising it took so many years for me to make the same mistake that so many of my friends made back in 2012. I managed to make in 2021. Whoops. So there's a little bit of a downside here to being on an exchange. And lately, all I've been doing is trading through decentralized exchanges. For better or for worse, you know, this technology is designed so that we can take peer-to-peer finance back into our own hands, and these exchanges make it easier. So apparently they've been mixing funds, but let's see what happens if everyone tries to remove their money. And if they're able to do so, well, then it wasn't quite mixing of the funds like FTX had done. So it says these charges include misleading investors about the adequacy of its systems to detect and control manipulative trading, about its efforts to restrict U.S. investors from trading on its unregulated platform. Regulators said in the civil lawsuit filed in Federal District Court, Washington, Binance, Mr. Zhao enriched themselves by billions of US dollars while placing investors' assets at significant risk. No, we don't know if any of that is true. Those are just words that the regulator has written down on a piece of paper. I have seen no evidence of this. All assets in the crypto market or early venture anything are extremely risky, and you're always at significant risk. One of the reasons why we talk about asymmetry so often is because if there is room for significant risk to the downside, which means you could lose everything, it means there's significant risk for the upside potential as well. And we don't really want to lock you out of both of those. So they're just basically spitting on each other's shoes here and trying to shine them, being like, yeah, this is amazing. The regulators are crooks, just plain and simple. So it says the thugs and crooks have long seen Binance as a major target in their quest. I like how they make them out to be like fictional mages, like Gary Gensler is like this orc hunter on a quest to heal the industry built around explicitly anti-government ethos. Well, it's not about anti-government, it's about governments that control the monetary supply to their own benefit while stomping on the smallest and the poorest or the middle class. And that's largely what government does through inflation. Even though they like to lie to your face and say that that's not the case, it's exactly what they do. So it's not an ethos of anti-government, it's an ethos of the government has been in our money and doing things that get in the way of the control of our peer-to-peer mechanisms. Again, if you want to pay us in Dogecoin, we'll take Dogecoin. In fact, everything can become a currency under that particular standard, which is, hey, if you want to use this thing to pay us and we can very easily trade it for whatever else we would like, then it makes sense. It makes sense that all of these things are currencies, not just assets. Now, any currency in limited supply will have drastic market shifts due to who owns or doesn't own the majority of those tokens. It's just the way currency works. But for this, the majority of the US currency, it's all held in the hands of the International Monetary, or the IMF, and these central bankers. So they're basically saying, hey, these guys are doing the exact same thing that we're doing, except they're not part of your government, so let's get them. The SEC cited a 2018 email from Binance's chief compliance officer saying, we do not want Binance to be regulated over. And this is actually a very sensible idea. If you look at what's happening with Twitter right now, they're trying to basically regulate free speech away from the internet. So you can go stand on the side of the street and say whatever you want, but you can't come onto the internet and say what you want. Free speech needs to be universal. And this is one of the things that's difficult here is the freedom to transact, because money is speech and information, should be a human right. It should be your right to choose and use Dogecoin if you feel like doing so. So ultimately they're barking up a tree here, I think, that is effectively, again, ignoring the criminal behavior that they are themselves complicit in. The US government is basically one of the largest corrupt mafia bodies on the planet. They have effectively killed millions of children and women around the world through their illegal wars that we're here for the defense of everybody, Team America kind of mentality. Anyways, so Binance was already under pressure. The Justice Department, which is, they're a much bigger deal than the SEC, although also equally as corrupt, as we have been able to tell from some of the recent documents that have been released on the Twitter files. The Justice Department is investigating an exchange for money laundering violations. Now, this is a really difficult area because HSBC, the world's largest banks, have all been hit with huge money laundering fines. In fact, they are the most guilty of those things. So they're not doing a very good job of regulating out the problems they want. In fact, money laundering still exists, but what they're trying to do is make it so that you can't launder money. They can through these very complex shell companies in Liechtenstein, through the BVIs. You can set those up. You can buy new passports. You can do a bunch of things that really get you off of that grid, unless you're kind of average person who can't afford to do so. So money laundering violations, they just throw these words out there like they're important, but they've lost all meaning when we realize that these regulators are nothing but corrupt officials. So Binance lost its outside auditing firm when Mazarus announced that it would no longer do business with crypto companies. The company has also seen control of the market shrink. To improve its reputation, Binance has hired a slew of compliance officers, etc. We allege that Zhao and the entities not only knew of the rules of the road, but they also consciously chose to evade them and put their customers and investors at risk. Again, we haven't seen that. We haven't seen investors that are put at risk, other than investors should be able to risk, and in general, they're not allowed to do so. So the top nation security regulator filed 13 charges again against Mr. Zhao, better known in the crypto world as CZ. The SEC is taking action a little over a month after the Commodities Future Exchange filed its own civil enforcement actions against Xiao. The CFTC is seeking to bar Xiao from doing business that falls in its jurisdiction. Okay, so I don't want to read through the rest of this because it's just a bunch of fucking propaganda. This is all propaganda. This is not news gathering anymore. What they're doing is they're creating propaganda for the regulators instead of trying to expose the regulators' complicit behavior in fraud to begin with. So it's basically like one mafia boss patting the other guy in the back, being like, well, this mafia boss over here, he's allowed to do business. Okay, but what I wanted to focus on was this. This is a post by a friend of mine, Keith Rumjan, the Asia, and actually while we're here, I wonder if I have this on the desktop right now. I'm gonna have to, one sec, I'll bring it up after this, but I want to show you something from the IMF in a little bit. So, number one, just the Beijing has dropped a landmark white paper all about Web3 innovation and development. This is a huge moment with titans like CZ and Yatsu praising its importance. So 2 days ago, China has opened its regulations to the Web3 movement. This white paper talks about transforming traditional industries, boasting digital sovereignty. Now, we know all how China is about sovereignty. They don't really, these two words do not belong in the same basket together, but nonetheless, and data security giving privacy a much needed upgrade. This just looks like me another way for China to write in what they're already doing and include blockchain into an already integrated social credit system. They want the Web3 trailblazers leading the charge in tech and innovation. They've got big plans for research, talent cultivation, supporting awesome blockchain startups. The white paper is dreaming big about how blockchain can revolutionize finance, governance, supply chains, and even social governance. Sounds dangerous to me. But we'll go on and we'll look. Oh, look, Hong Kong's regulatory leads set up to be major crypto hub 2 hours ago. It's almost like as the US is shooting itself in the face on so many fronts, what we're getting is reactions from the Asian region that are supportive of these measures. And I don't know how many of you have been paying attention. I hope more than you have not. But we are at war right now. We are in World War III. It is not fought with kinetic weapons. It is fought with psychological and informational warfare. It is fought with global regulatory warfare. So anyways, let's just drop in and see what Hong Kong has to be doing. Officially, Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China. See how those two just kind of slip together? They didn't used to be that way, in case you were wondering. Hong Kong and China used to be considered separate, but here, Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China is a city of over 7 million residents in the eastern Pearl River, the Delta of South China. It's just, I love how many times they put China in the word right after Hong Kong. The city is known, and now Hong Kong is a city, by the way, not just a country, which it used to be, or it still is. I'm not sure. I'm sure my phone is now reporting me to the Chinese government. The city is known for being pro-innovation technology, and over the past year it has introduced legislation that promotes and adopts cryptocurrencies. Hong Kong is a major world economy and serving as a center of investment and trade in the region. The city is a cosmopolitan metropolis with Western and Asian influences. As 2023, most countries were still curious about cryptocurrencies. Hong Kong has taken a decidedly pro-crypto stance. This is 2 hours after this. This comes out. Oh, the United States is full of a bunch of dingbats who are trying to screw themselves over by removing like the innovation in tech. And Hong Kong, right on that beat, less than like at the same time, releases ideas of pro-regulatory stances towards crypto. Now, there's something I wanted to bring up here on this screen. I was looking through the IMF. You know, it's always good to look at the criminal footprints. If you want to know what's going on, hey, ladies and gentlemen, let's just, let's see what the criminals are doing. Oh, did that go here? So I'm trying to bring up another chart here that I downloaded this morning. I didn't realize I was going to want to use this today, but okay, this should do it. BTC share, okay. So, oh no, hold on, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. This should do it. Okay. So this is the biggest driver. Asia will contribute to 70% of global growth this year. The International Monetary Fund, the World Economic Outlook for April 2023. 34.9% coming from China and 15.4% coming from India. The Western Hemisphere accounts for 13.7%. Now, the Western Hemisphere is a pretty big place, you'd figure. Including Europe, it's up there at 20%, still markedly below China's impact. And one of the things I think I want you to pay attention here is the difference between these stories. The difference between the driver of what the economic outlook seems to forecast, what we're seeing coming out of Hong Kong, pro-crypto stances, and the ability for the United States to effectively shoot itself right in the foot in short order. So let's go a little bit deeper into this Cointelegraph article as I kind of roll around to my point here. In mid-February, sources claim that some of Chinese officials were reportedly giving tacit approval for Hong Kong's pro-crypto efforts. Local business operators stated the Chinese government might even be open to using Hong Kong as a test bed for crypto as long as it doesn't threaten the country's financial stability. By March, more than 80 crypto firms expressed interest in opening an office in Hong Kong. In April, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, known as HKMA, the region's central banking institution regulator, called on all banks to provide services to cryptocurrency firms. So on one hand, you have the Chinese government now, after years of banning it, openly supporting regulation in Hong Kong, also stating Hong Kong is part of China, so it's a little bit of some gray area here. But these two things are starkly in contrast to one another, where you would expect to hope that the United States was smart enough to invite technology and its revolutionary capabilities home. They are forcing it to go abroad, and in the meantime, those that are abroad are building regulations and legislations that is very clear. So in May, the FinTech Association of Hong Kong said that the pro-state would launch a licensing regime for crypto service providers and exchanges with a deadline of June 1st. So hey, look at that! June 1st, all of a sudden, including retail, Hong Kong Securities SFC announced that licensed crypto platforms would be allowed to serve retail customers. So the exact same moment that you have the thugs in the United States deciding to go after Mr. CZ here, I was going to call him Xi. Sheezy, oh God, China loves that. At the same point, Hong Kong and China are opening up those regulations. Seems kind of weird, right? Okay, so let's just take a look at Binance's response here. This came out just an hour or two ago as well. We are severely disappointed in the U.S. Exchange and Securities and Exchange Commission to choose to file a complaint today against Binance, seeking, among other remedies, purportedly emergency relief. Now, I don't know what the fuck they need emergency relief for, what that means, but the United States is a huge fan of emergencies because they can get away with all sorts of bullshit when they do that. I gotta learn to not swear on YouTube. It's so difficult though when you're dealing with such blatant criminal behavior on part of the US government. So from the start, we have actively cooperated with the SEC's investigations and worked hard to answer their questions, addressing their concerns. Most recently, we have engaged in extensive good faith discussion and reached a negotiated settlement to resolve their investigations. But despite our efforts, with its complaint today, the SEC abandoned that progress and instead chose to unilaterally act and litigate. We are disheartened by that choice. While we take the SEC's allegations very seriously, they should not be the subject of an SEC enforcement action, let alone on an emergency basis. We intend to defend our platform vigorously. Unfortunately, the SEC's refusal to productively engage with us is just another example of the Commission's misguided and conscious refusal to provide the much needed clarity and guidance to the digital asset industry. And I 100% agree with them. And again, the reason being is because they're not trying to help you. They're trying to help the big banks. That's who they can work for. Notice how Bernie Madoff got along with his scam, billions of dollars for so long. SEC even checked them out. How did they manage to do that? Oh yeah, because their only job is to protect those who are moving large amounts of money into their interest. Jeffrey Epstein would be another great example of that. Unilaterally labeling certain tokens and services securities, even ones over which other U.S. authorities have asserted jurisdiction, only compounds these problems and confusion. Perhaps most surprisingly, the SEC's actions to undermine America's role as a global hub for financial innovation and leadership. I agree with this wholeheartedly. And to be clear, any allegations that users' assets in the Binance.US platform have ever been at risk are simply wrong. And I'd agree with them here. I have not heard one single case of a person whose assets didn't or were not properly managed on Binance to this date. FTX, on the other hand, clear, blatant violations, and nothing, just a little slap on the wrist and let them go running home to mom and dad, because it's clear that FTX was a CIA fucking slush fund to provide unregistered monies to propped up medical and financial scams, effectively. Fake articles in the New England Journal of Medicine paid for by FTX. Where did that money come from? Well, I would guess the CIA. So you're dealing with the supranational corporations here who pretend to be like they're the U.S. government through their regulators. The FDA is another great example of this. They're entirely bought out by Big Pharma, and they are nothing but a mouthpiece for those organizations because that's who pays them. SEC is no different here. It seems that based on these developments, the SEC's goal here was never to protect investors, and I would, this is 100% correct. It's not to protect investors, it's to protect the big banks and the central banks, because that's who pays their bills. If that were truly the case, the staff would have thoughtfully engaged with us on the facts in an effort to demonstrate the safety and the security of the Binance platform. One of the things I wanted to point out here a little bit deeper into the particulars of this, I'll try to get the, it's Article 352 in their 13 nonsense stuff against Binance here. They jumped out and decided to say, hey, since the Binance platform's launched, defendants have made available for trading on the crypto assets that are offered and sold as investment contracts and thus securities. This again is not true, especially when it comes to something like sand. So for instance, sand is a video game. If you can use the in-game video game currency to play the video game, it's not a fucking security. It's clearly a currency within the game. The SEC is so fucking stupid. You have people there whose IQ is lower than my fucking IGF-1 levels right now. It's just ridiculous. Now, Matic is another great example here. These are not securities by many definitions. You could get into legal arguments for a bunch of these. Sand is a specific one. Anything in the video game, Mana as well. I believe, and Axie Infinity. Anything within the video game standard who has already been selling fake digital currencies like Fortnite, the Fortnite V-Bucks, it sells thousands of fake fucking dollars to children all around the world every fucking day, and it's not a security. Why not? It's not. If Fortnite were to release a version of a cryptocurrency that was limited in supply, it would change depending on the demand of that currency. It's still a currency, even though its price fluctuates. So the Securities Exchange Commission here is just again showing their hand on how blatantly stupid they actually are. But anyways, let's continue on here with what Binance had to say. We will continue to cooperate with regulators because they have no choice, and policymakers in the U.S. across the globe because that is the right thing to do. Again, because they have no choice. It's just there's no other choice. You conform to the mafia and their regime, or they come over and bust your kneecaps. That's all. It's always been that way. Binance remains committed to productive engagement, ensure the next generation of cryptocurrency regulators fosters innovation and implementing and ensuring important customer protections. Because Binance is not a U.S. exchange, the SEC's actions are limited in reach. Still, we stand with the digital asset market and participants in the U.S. in opposition to the SEC's latest overreach. We work alongside. Now, they've done a great job here. CZ's been a standout in terms of this market and the things that they've been capable of doing. They haven't lost anybody's money. So, this is a big deal. It's led to a bunch of market downside today, all across the board. Bitcoin currently dropping down to 25,500. This is actually right in the region we were looking for as well. So this is actually awesome. For those of you that are in the private group, we've been wanting to come down to this $25,000, 500 mark and really test it. And I think today we are getting a very strong test of that support range. You can see this kind of descending channel here that we are in at the moment. I do suspect we're going to get a continuation in the bullishness of Bitcoin because there's just no other asset out there. As much as I love everything within the gaming sector, for those of you that are in the private group, you will know there's not been one deviation in Bitcoin being our central guiding light from our investment thesis. And there's a reason for that. It's fucking awesome. But everything else in terms of adoption, how do you get so many people on board? I'm a very strong advocate of the gaming sector kind of leading that revolution. But right now, on the 6 hour here, we've come in again to test really strongly this $25,000 support area that we've had drawn in here for the last 2 months now. So I do suspect we're going to continue bullish off this. And I think it's kind of ironic and funny that the day that the SEC accuses Binance of mishandling funds and lying to regulators is also the day that China and Hong Kong goes out and says in characters that I can't not read, something. Here, let's translate the tweet. Hong Kong is now offering spot and managed services to professional and retail customers as a pioneer of virtual assets in the security on May 29th, so just a few days ago. This is incredible. This is war between the body's politic at large. That's what this is. This is war. When you read in English this bullshit, and then we go over here and read in Chinese and read, we'd be so stoked about this if the SEC came out and they're like, awesome guys, we know you love trading highly speculative digital video game nonsense, and we understand that it can be used as a currency because video games have been selling these fake digital currencies for decades, fake digital items for decades. Now, here's an awesome technology that allows us to go from fake digital numbers within a box that nobody controls to real receipts, effectively, for the ownership of that digital video game gun or land, whatever you want to call it. Now, not too many video gamers would probably think that their land in Fortnite or so their guns in Fortnite were assets. First off, you can't save guns in Fortnite, so that's a very poor analogy. But the problem here is that we have very clear potential for what these digital items could be, and a long history of companies making billions of dollars selling them, and then the SEC jumping in here and be like, ha, we've got you, there's securities because the price changes. These motherfuckers are so stupid. I guess that's the point. It's not that they're stupid, they are criminal. At one point or another here, the US citizens have to wake up and realize that their government is not stupid, it is criminal. Joe Biden tripping and falling on his face is not stupid, that's criminal. Because what do they need? Hey, someone that we can just feed lines on a prompter. Great, that's criminal behavior, not stupidity. And it took me a long time to get to this. During the pandemic, I said, wait, why do they keep making, every time they do something, they make a mistake. Every single thing that they've done is make a mistake. And there's something about, third time is enemy action. Every time that they've gotten it wrong, it's become clearer and clearer that we're dealing with some corruption that is basically impossible for the average everyday person to imagine. So I think it's very poignant that we see the release of favorable virtual asset licenses in Hong Kong coming out the same day that the SEC is attacking CZ. I think that the United States is currently being destroyed by communism from the inside out. Check out G. Edward Griffin's work. I mean, it's pretty clear that the war from within the United States is what is currently set out to destroy it. So anyways, well, let's take a look at a few of your guys' thoughts and questions here as we leave the BTC chart open. Awesome, Barry, nice to see all my friends in there. Shizi, yes, exactly. I thought that was a pretty stunning joke as well. 137 live viewers for today's video. Thanks for you guys all for joining us today. Make sure you give us the thumbs up and support this content. I haven't done a live stream like this in a long time. It just felt like the right thing to do because of what was going on in the market, and I had some free time, so. Let's scroll through here though. So again, ultimately, long-term, extraordinarily bullish on Bitcoin. That thesis has not changed since Bitcoin was $200, and I was like, oh wow, non-state backed money, like this is clearly genius. Exactly the same thesis I think will prevail for years and years to come. Bitcoin will be the most valuable when your money is the least safe from tyrannical governments. And when they're doing stuff like this, it's pretty clear that your money is not safe with the governments. The protections that they are trying to offer are the opposite of protections. Yeah, Bitcoin down to 25,500. Now, I actually wanted to point out that if we start to break here, because we're right at the kind of lower regression line, if we break this, although I'm ultimately bullish, these you guys will have to do a bunch of study if you don't know what I'm talking about here, but an SOS can often lead to an upthrust after and then distribution. So this could still become a UTAD. Right now, we've got a very strong regression line effectively supporting this from the previous LPS, and I believe that's what we're doing right now, creating an LPS. But if we start to break below this 25,000 and then can't close back above this downward trend line, we could see a fall in the market that is just unparalleled in human history. So how do I look at some of that? Let's go back down here. Let's take a look at some of the traditional market indicators. USM2. So this is the US states monetary supply. As you can see, effectively, without hesitation, every single president, every single Congress, every single elected body who has entered the United States government has voted to raise the debt ceiling and increase the monetary supply. Now, I want to get maybe a bit more granular here with that thought and share something else here. Let's pop this over here. Okay. Let's go now from the biggest driver being Asia to the US debt will increase irrespective of who's in the White House. And this has been a big conversation the last few days. As you can see here, effectively the M2 supply, as we were just looking at, but this black line that keeps going up is the apparent debt ceiling. And every time they got close to it, they just raised it a little bit. And then they kept raising it, and then they've raised it, and then they've raised it a lot. I don't see what would come up that they would change this. I think that it's basically set in stone now that you're going to see hyperinflation through the continual increase of the debt ceiling, which is largely what we've been watching. And we've gone over this a few times by comparing the M2 supply to the S&P 500. Now, let's ignore some of the drawings I've got here, so we'll get rid of those at the moment. But let's go ahead and compare to the M2. So here you go, the M2, orange line moving across over the S&P 500. You can see pretty plainly here that the S&P 500 has only grown due to monetary inflation. The idea that every time you print a dollar, that dollar has to find a home to go somewhere. And most people are smart enough, okay, let me rephrase that. The people who are smart enough to have extra money, yeah, that's a better way to say it, will invest it. So they will take that dollar and they'll put it into real estate, into stocks, into new companies, into venture capital, into building their own productive business, whatever it might be. So every time that monetary supply goes up, so does the S&P 500. Now, let's take a look at what's happened the last little while. The S&P 500 has continued to increase. Let's go back down to the daily. We actually have had a breakout of the resistance, and we've started to move upwards. Now, at this previous backup point here, there are a few things that just struck out at me. Number one, a significant amount of supply came into the market at this backup, and it was very limited in its downside. Number one, price spread and supply. Compare that equal amount of supply on this side and the price spread, and you can tell that we've entered into a bullish sentiment here, at least for the next little bit. I suspect that the S&P 500 will move all the way up to the top of the box here, which will subsequently bring Bitcoin probably to around $42,000 to $50,000. Through the rest of the market, though, what's interesting here is the dollar is somewhat peaking out. Let's bring our RSI back. The dollar on the RSI for the daily has peaked out. We've hit somewhat of a top. It's very likely that we're going to come back down here over the next few days. Let's look at the NASDAQ here as well. The NASDAQ appears to have done the same thing. We are now breaking out against that. So check this out too. You've got resistance coming all the way across this region. Boom, boom. Bang, 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 bang. And we're just getting into that resistance now. If we flip this, and this becomes the new support like it has for the S&P 500 at the moment, I suspect that we will return to the previous all-time highs for the NASDAQ as well. Now, the reason why this is important is because one of the things that I've noticed these criminals like to do is pump up the monetary system as a type of heroin for the market. Because when people start to forget that their life and livelihood is on the line because of the things these corrupt governments are doing, they would get super agitated. So instead, what they do is they just increase the monetary supply more, fluff up that heroin, give people a big dose of, oh yeah, more money, new shoes, new cars, new watches, and everybody forgets about how criminally corrupt the governments have been is because they're too distracted with stuff. They've done this over and over and over again. Here's some more money, forget about where we touched you, and move on with your life. They've been able to rape and pillage through this same methodology. Although that will eventually run out, it has not yet. Hyperinflation has not started yet. Now, just lastly here, we've seen the nickel index return to zero. The wheat index has returned, I'm sorry, not to zero, but its baseline since 2020. In the heat of the pandemic, you had massively inflated prices due to customer demand. People weren't leaving their homes. There's a shit ton of money in the market. Here, we've returned basically to the median of 2018 for wheat, which is great to see. Oil, same thing, almost back down to the median of 2020. 2018 here, within the range at least. Energy prices have also collapsed significantly since the peak of 2022, coming down here. Although we are finding a bottom with energy, oil and energy are at the moment not abundant, although we could probably change that with some technology from aliens, but whatever, it's a different story. Grains have also returned down to their previous, oh no, they have not. Grains are still actually incredibly overpriced here. You have the median at around 172 and they're almost twice that. So the grains have not returned to the median. And a lot of people live off grains and rice, I'll have you note. So this is where a lot of the heightened inflation will come from. Federal funds rate pushing up at 5 here. Again, they're just going to keep increasing this. Who knows how high? Maybe they do something as stupid as UST and like, oh, we offer 20% interest returns to try to really suck any extra US capital out of the system before they totally implode it. I bet that these will go hand in hand. You'll see an increase in the interest rates and the market price for the first time ever as they try to convince people to take out that US dollars from the market and put it into the US fund rates. It's a different story. Let's see, all of the, US 5, 10, and 30-year bonds all hovering around the exact same price. This is still a very bad signal. It means that no matter how long you have trust in the US government, they're paying you about the same, which doesn't look good for long-term investors holding these federal bonds effectively, which I believe what happened to a lot of the banks. Okay, let's see. There's one or two more things I wanted to briefly go over, so let me share that now. Actually, while we're here, let's just stay in the total crypto market cap. Okay, total crypto market cap, including Bitcoin here. It does appear that we are in an area of consolidation. Obviously, as soon as we broke out past this downward trend line, a lot of momentum came in the, but again, what's interesting here is if you look at this from oh yeah, this actually doesn't look as good. The Bitcoin looks good. The rest of the crypto market as a whole is not as convinced of a market continuation quite yet. Why does that happen here? There we go. So this is what I'm worried about, is that this becomes a UTAD, or an upthrust afterwards distribution. That's what it stands for. So this is the total crypto market cap, including Bitcoin. There's a very real possibility that we come all the way back down to the bottom of this here, which would be horrible for the rest of the crypto market. But on Bitcoin, again, it doesn't look as bad. For Bitcoin, it looks much more like an SOS. And because Bitcoin leads so much of this market, I'm letting Bitcoin be my guiding light here still. Unless we see a break of this downward trend line right now to invalidate this entire accumulation process, I'm still ultimately bullish. For the video game sector, there's probably a ton of great opportunities here. From our early entries in Magic here, we're still up 350% with a high of 750%. So that one turned out great for us. Gala was not as nice to us. We were a little late on that entry, and it's recoiled almost 50%. Again, the important thing here to remember, outside of Bitcoin, outside of our larger interests in things like Ethereum and Avalanche, I view the entire crypto video game sector as venture capital. And I want to be very clear about what that means. Venture capital means there's a high likelihood that you're going to lose absolutely everything that you put in there, okay? But it's also the one where you might get 1000x. Bitcoin is probably not going to provide 1000x at this moment, but it's possible in other areas. So one of the things I want to really highlight is when I go into things and I'm talking about them being similar to venture capital, it means it's very easy to lose all your fucking money, okay? So just warning for those who like to play this game. If there's a big amount of room for upside, there's equal amount of room for downside. So Gala got hit there. It doesn't look as yummy. Ape is right back down at the bottom. Now, interestingly enough here, we might be able to, I still think that this was the low volume spring, and what we're getting right now is a really big test. The video game sector has not come out and proven itself yet. These games are not producing billions of dollars in revenue and bringing in gamers from all around the world. They will one day, but it's not happening today. And we're seeing a huge test, potential LPS here for Ape. I mean, it doesn't get too much better than the bottom of a box entry. With Sand Token, we had moved right up to its downward trend line yesterday, touched that, and then very quickly reversed. And what I want to point out again is look at how much supply is coming into the market right now, and it's a pretty limited price spread. I'll have you note, if you look back in the previous moment when we had price or supply equivalent to what we're seeing today, you saw massive price drops of 30–40%. Here, it's just a few percent. If we break above the top of this trend line here for sand, this will be a big breakout moment. We could see big moves come in, although all eyes is on Bitcoin. This is our primary driver for everything that we do here. Again, if you're in our private group, you'll know that every single newsletter I've ever produced, Bitcoin is the shining star and northern light of this thesis. The reason we love all the other technology, if it was Matic or Fetch, is because this falls in within that venture capital area. I mean, even Fetch here from a few months ago is up 200% with a high of like 700% from the median of the range there, which is astronomical in terms of like a middle of the market move effectively, right? So although we're down on some of the Gala position here, all of our intention is to help people understand the importance of, like, if you go in a traditional venture fund, you know, and they're like, hey, we're lucky if we get 3 to 4 out of every 10 investments that we make correct. It should help you understand that 70% failure is actually the accepted failure rate. So that's pretty important to keep in mind. I'll take a look at some of your guys' thoughts and questions here really quickly while I roll in. Pound up those likes, says Wendell. Thanks for that, Wendell. I appreciate that. Good live stream. You guys are awesome. Nathan says, great analysis. Thank you, Nathan. I don't know where Libra is. I'd have to look that up. I'm sorry there, Wendell. And then BK says, can you look at INJ? I believe INJ was a trading platform. I'm mostly interested in games for the future just because INJ, I don't know what the hell INJ is, but just for fun, because you asked and I'm here today, we'll take a look. Oh, well, yeah, actually, look at this. We did follow it back in 2021, and there's a nice widening accumulation triangle here, and clearly that played out well. So I'm glad we looked at it with you guys prior. Wow. And again, just look how strong these potential reaccumulations can be here. You know, not a perfect reaccumulation channel itself, hard to say. Spring followed by SOS, backup, SOS, backup, SOS, backup. We're in a pretty dangerous spot. I mean, back in December, great entry points here for most of this stuff. And that's a big move too. What was that percent-wise for INJ here from the bottom of the range? Up 400%, up 600% in total from its previous December spring. That's pretty impressive considering, you know, we're in the middle of a bear market. I don't know what else to say about that. I wouldn't be taking positions here on something like INJ. It's much nicer. There are other areas where it looks much nicer. One of our private bear members was a big fan of Sol, so we'll take a look at that. Here, Sol looks closer just because of this nice reaccumulation channel that appears to be taking place right now. There's a few other ones out there too. I don't think it was Aptos. Aptos had a nice reaccumulate back to December, but again, something like Ape Token, where it's right at the bottom of the range with a clear potential up move up to the uptrend here, looks great. I do still suspect that what we're going to get is a breakout for all of these things. I think that they're going to push us into monetary heroin overdose so that everybody forgets how criminal they are because they, you know, they can buy stuff. It seems to be the kind of the continued course of action for these governments. Nonetheless, yeah, comparatively speaking, INJ looks like in a more, I mean, there's more risk to the downside at the moment, but obviously it had a great move up since since December, 600 or 700% in a bear market is definitely a powerful momentum. Okay, well, I'm going to leave it at that. I just wanted to go in and share my thoughts on how stupid I think or rather how criminal. Yeah, because they're not stupid. They're doing this on purpose. They don't keep making stupid mistakes by accident. They're doing it because they're criminal. Once you come to that conclusion, the world of conspiracy becomes clear. Look, I don't know how it ever became the idea that conspiracies are theories. People conspire to commit fraud, to commit wire fraud, to commit all sorts of heinous acts on a daily basis. There is effectively no reason to think that conspiracies are a theory. They are a fact of life. Anywhere where someone could profit, whether legally or illegally, people conspire to follow that profit. Sometimes they will do it illegally, sometimes they will do it legally. Either way, they are conspiring. And the ability to convince everyone that conspiracies are just theories is one of the greatest disinformation campaigns I've ever seen. Conspiracies are a fact of life, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes a conspiracy is just bigger than we would like to comprehend. And it is the danger of the complicit, oh so lovely and average individual who is nice to the bottom of their heart, who could never comprehend the level of psychopathy that takes place in the corporate world. Anyways, we'll leave it at that. I appreciate you guys. Yes, the CIA invented it. My grandma actually bought me a book called The Disinformation Guide to the CIA. She bought that for me in the early I think it was 1999. I have to go back and look. And it was very clear that even my grandma knew that the CIA was like the mainstream disinformation artist. Like they came up with that term. That's why they're able to label everyone else as such. Anyways, thank you guys all. I appreciate that. I hope you've gained something valuable. I'm still bullish here ultimately. Just for, again, recap's sake, if we break this trend line now, let's keep an eye out because they might try to rug everybody here. I don't think they do. I think they try to inject the monetary heroin needle arm right into everybody before they pull the rug out another time. But until then, we'll keep a close eye because they might try to rug us before then. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, stay with the Arcane Bear. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'll be signing off for the rest of the day. Give us the thumbs up because you love us and because you love life. Because life is awesome Thumbs up to life, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you guys in the next episode. I guess while I'm in town here and I already have all this gear